Hi and welcome. This time around I've got some tools that I've been slowly acquiring over the last month or two, and I've just been sort of putting them all together to just have one video on to show things that I found. Some of them are not very unusual items, just really good finds on eBay, like this one right here and another one. And some other items are things I found on Amazon or other sites, not including eBay and Amazon, that are just interesting items that I found. And so I thought I'd share them with you. And I just want to give you a warning ahead of time. Sometimes I buy these items simply for everyone's education, and I risk losing money on them, getting a useless piece of crap tool, just so that you don't have to go and risk it yourself. And it's just a curiosity because I love tools, always have been. And so my risk may prevent you from spending money where you shouldn't have or will regret. Or I may find a bargain that you go, hey, I want one of those, and that's not too expensive. So that's why I do these things. It's not because I absolutely needed it or because I thought it was going to be great going in. Anyways, let's get started. First item we have here is something I've been looking for a long time, but never really seriously considered because they're absolutely insanely expensive. And on top of that, you have to buy so many of these to cover a decent range that it really becomes financially unreasonable. I think to get a full set of these guys, from really small to say a couple inches, 2, 3, 4 inches, I think you'd be looking at like $10,000, $15,000. That might have given it away already. But I found this for an absolute bargain. Every once in a while people list things and they don't really know what they're listing, and it might be estate sales, where some unfortunate widow's getting rid of tools of their spouse and they didn't really know what they had. And I feel guilty taking advantage of it, but I was also kind of excited that I found a deal like this. I think I paid a little over $100 for this. And we have here a 2 to 3 inch 3-point mic. And I've been looking for sets of these for a while. Pretty fantastic. The way this one works is it covers a 1/2 inch range. And when you want to do the other 1/2 inch, you replace these three carbide face jaws. It's a beautiful thing. And this one included the calibration ring, which is pretty amazing. Because when you get sets without a calibration ring, you're kind of hurting because you have to know that this will actually read what you're setting because they're also adjustable. So this was a really good find. I'm very excited about it. And it covers 2 to 3 inches, which is a really decent range. Usually they're 1/2 inch range, but because this has replaceable jaws, it was amazing. And it's in really good shape. The thimble turns very smoothly, and it works quite well. So I'm very pleased with that. Number 2 was an item I had bid on at the exact same time as the other because it was sort of in the same range. This is 2.5 to 3 inch. And this one is a digital one. And this one was around the same price point, but it only covers half the range, has an extension arm so you can reach deeper in, and it's digital, which is pretty nice. However, this one does not come with a setting ring, so that makes it somewhat less useful on its own. I probably will resell this guy at some point because, again, without the setting ring, it's not particularly useful, and the Starrett covers the range that this one covers. And I don't care whether it's a digital readout or not, although it's kind of interesting setting this because, normally setting rings are not an even amount. There's some sort of random value in the range of the micrometer. And that's no exception with the Starrett set. The Starrett set is not like 2.5 exactly. It's like 2.49 something. And it fits within the range of both of the set of anvils that it has. This one does not come with a ring. Now, I could use this with the Starrett ring, but again, I don't know that I need to have 2 of these in the same range. It does have the extension piece if you ever had to reach in deep somewhere, or you wanted to check multiple points on a long, a deep bore. So that would be pretty handy, but seems kind of silly to have 2, especially when I was trying. I didn't expect to win both auctions because I lowballed both of them and ended up winning both of them. So that was kind of a surprise. These are the only 3-point mics I own. And I would love to have a full set, but they're, again, just impractically expensive. So I'll just keep my eye on eBay. Every once in a while they come up fairly inexpensively, and I'll try and take advantage of it. Next up, we have an item that we use a lot at work, or similar items. I don't know about this specific brand, but these are kind of interesting. And if you haven't seen one before, they can be pretty handy. So let me pop this out of the package and show you what it does. So the ones I'm familiar with at work actually have a little rotating part inside here that ratchets. This one is purely friction based, as you can see here. And the rope slides smoothly in one direction so you can snug something up, but doesn't go in the other direction. It locks tight. So I don't know if this is the best one. The ones that we have at work, the grips use, and they're quite expensive. This one I found on Amazon was fairly inexpensive, so I thought I'd give it a try. But it's not, you don't use this so much for lifting things as to hold them in place. So at work, like, you'll have two places to put hooks on, and then you'll snug this down and hold a ladder against a wall upright, that sort of thing. So they're pretty handy, and I got this one because I can use it around the shop here, but in case other people hadn't seen it, I thought I'd just show you. There's a variety of different designs of this one. I'm not sure I love this design. I prefer the ratcheting ones we have at work, but again, they are quite expensive. So maybe this one's not bad. This one's supposedly good for up to 250 pounds. I don't know that I would trust it with that kind of weight. Certainly nothing under a live or die circumstance, but great for holding things up against the shop wall, or, you know, holding things down in your truck. So I know this isn't exactly a normal tool to be covered. I'm a little disappointed at this one. Again, I bought it sight unseen just because it's similar to the ones we have. I think the ones we have at work are over $100. This was fairly inexpensive. I think it's like 15, 20 bucks. So just thought I'd throw it out there for you. If you find something, hopefully you'll find it useful, possibly for something around the shop. If not, now you've heard of it. Next up, we have a tool, again, fairly inexpensive. This was one of those things that I didn't think was going to work out particularly great, but I thought it's 10 bucks or so. Let's give it a try. So it's got a spring inside that holds it closed. It may seem very familiar, or you may be very familiar with it. A lot of milling machines have their quill stops replaced with a quick release one, which I would love to do to mine, but I haven't ever gotten around to doing. But that requires taking your quill apart to get it in there. And it looks like the normal quill nut, except it's got a little thread release button so you can quick move it. Because if you've ever had to adjust the quill stop any great length, you know, this is, I think, half 20 or something like that, or the metric equivalent. And it takes forever to get that quill nut close to the top. So this allows you to clamp right on the quill wherever you want. Now it's going to stop where the threads are, so that means it may be a little off from where you exactly want to stop. So this is not for precision operations. The quill nut stop would be better for a more precise stop. But this is for quick jobs. If you're just trying to set an approximate depth, this could be really handy. Let's take you over and show you how it works. All right, so we're over here at the milling machine. And if you were not certain about what I was talking about, I think most of you probably are, if not all. But just in case, here is the quill stop. And as you can see, this one slides very freely. It's actually two nuts. It's a lock nut and the quill stop itself. So you can actually lock it if you want to at a certain location. I leave them fairly loose, and they spin very freely. But it'll take you a long time to get the quill stop all the way up, as you can see. And I normally leave mine at the bottom so I can get maximum travel if I want to. So you can see how that would take a while to move up there. Heck, just going half an inch, you can see how long that's taken me. So this guy just pops on the shaft and is the same threads as the shaft. So you get it in place, and you can repeat, I'd say within 5 to 10 thousandths, that kind of range. Nothing for super precise work, but if you're just trying to do countersink bevels or something else that's not ultra critical, this might be the tool for you. This was like 10 bucks. It's HHIP, and I did get this one on Amazon. I've also seen it on eBay, and it seems to work all right. So I thought I'd give it a shot. Next up is a tool that they claim is useful for driving wing nuts in. And I thought it was going to be a set of 3 that would include different sizes. What I was thinking of when they talked about this was a tool similar to this custom one here that is used for driving these drop ceiling hangers in. And this one works quite well, and it came with these lag screws in a set that I got at Home Depot or Lowe's or something like that. So I thought this was going to be a set of 3 different sizes, because that's sort of what the ad made it appear like, but that really wasn't right. So here they are. Here's the 3 of them. And instead of 3 different sizes, it's 3 of the same size, more than you'll ever need in a lifetime. So not particularly excited about that. What these are really inexpensive 12mm sockets that they just cut a slot in, and they didn't even bother deburring the exiting edge here. If you can see that, didn't even bother. Now they were $8 for 3, which makes them $2 and something a piece. I don't know. You could easily make this yourself if you have a milling machine and carbide cutter or a surface grinder. So it gives you an idea that if you need to make one in the future, you certainly could. However, this is pretty limited as to what wing nuts it'll cover. For example, this one sort of would cover this 3/8 inch, certainly not cover the 1/2 inch, maybe down in 1/4 and lower. I call it a mediocre useful tool. The center section is useful to have a little bit open if it has to let a bolt go down the center, so that's a little bit handy. But even for $8, I don't know. If you had a specific use where you had to drive a bunch of nuts not too deeply so that the shaft wouldn't have to go too far up the socket, it might be okay. But anyways, you could always just make your own, because buying socket sets these days for a 1/4 inch shank are fairly inexpensive. So you could buy the set yourself and do exactly this. So next time I need one, I will keep that in the back of my brain. So maybe this was worth the $8 I dropped on this silly thing. Other than that, I wouldn't recommend you buy one unless you have a specific need for it. The next tool we have here is something that I was really pleased to get, and I've had a search on eBay for a long time for one of these, ever since I saw someone else get one, and I can't remember which guy it was. It might have been Tom Lipton. That guy cost me more money than any 5 people I know. He's a tool collector like myself, and he's always getting something really interesting. This tool in particular, I don't know if you can tell what it is from the top. This may give a big hint. As you can tell, looks like it holds something with a shaft in there, a 1/2 inch shaft, which indeed it does. Give you a big hint. I can put a diamond point dressing tool in there. And so you're saying, okay, what's the point of something like this? There's lots of dressing. Heck, you can just mount the dressing tool on the table of the surface grinder and go back and forth. And that's true, you can. However, this guy has an added feature which this cover is obscuring to protect it. And this is to set specific angles. And it's a really interesting tool in its design, because it's designed exactly like a precision angle setting table that you might see something like this. The use of this tool is to dress your surface grinding wheel at a specific angle. Now I was thinking I might be able to repurpose it and use it as a very tiny Ultradex, which is a name you might have heard of. Those things sell for a fortune. And I had the opportunity to get, for almost nothing, a 12-inch Ultradex. The problem is it weighed 300 and something pounds, and I can't, with my back, easily move that around the shop. I don't have a hydraulic engine hoist, because I don't know if there's anywhere to store it. So it's not really a practical tool for me to have. I've been looking for an Ultradex forever. I thought maybe I could modify this one to do double duty, but it kind of has this base piece in the way here. It's really designed specifically for dressing wheels on the surface grinder. And to set an angle, you just loosen this Allen screw here in the back here, and you can rotate your angle to a very specific degrees, minutes, and seconds, which is pretty amazing if you have to do some precision grinding. So I've always been in love with this design, where it's got the gear teeth and precision ground gear teeth that mesh, so you can set a very specific angle. This one is made by Newbold, if you're wondering one. It's called a Newbold Indexer. They might even still be for sale. It's a beautiful thing. The side and the bottom were ground at one point, but they've shown a lot of use. So I might have to dust this off at some point in time just to clean it up. But I found it just to be a beautiful and intriguing tool. I haven't had to do do an angle on the surface grinder to the wheel. I haven't had to dress a wheel at an angle. I could have always used a magnetic transfer block on a sine plate, which I have. So I could have always done the angles any way I wanted anyways. I just bought this tool because I think it's really beautiful and I'm kind of in love with the design. So anyways, thought you might find it interesting. All right, so next up we have a couple samples I've gotten from PCB Linear, and don't worry, they did not contact me or ask me to shill their products or anything like that. These were something I was curious in, and they had the samples available on their website, so I took advantage of it because I've wanted to roll my own 3D printer for a while, and I was very interested in what was out there. And they have some very moderately priced lead screw assemblies and sleeve bearing assemblies, which is what this is. So let's talk about the lead screw because they're kind of interesting. So their design, as you can see here, is sort of interesting. I mean, this is a high strength plastic lead screw nut, and the lead screw itself is stainless steel with Teflon coating on it. And then the nut is preloaded with a spring. This strap piece around here is actually a rolled spring that goes around the threads to keep the backlash down to a minimum. And I can't feel any on this one at the moment, but the motion is extremely smooth. And I was just kind of curious looking at the shaft prices, and we're talking like 50 to 100 bucks for, you know, quarter meter to a full meter, or let's see, quarter meter, a little under a foot to foot and a half. So not very expensive. They're designed for stepper motors. They have a lot of them in the 12 millimeter or just under ½ inch range, and a little bit smaller. The shaft coating is designed, and nut is designed to work for 6,000 miles of motion, which is quite a bit, especially considering how precise these are. The shaft straightness, you can get in standard for 3,000ths per foot straightness, to their precision ones to 1,000th per foot of straightness. Incredibly smooth, no feelable, you know, no backlash you could feel here. So if you want to design a 3D printer like I'm considering doing, I'm definitely going to look into these, because I want to do one that's a little less, what do you want to call it? Hobbyist level, and see if I can get more precise prints. Now you still have to take into account the shrinkage of the plastic and all that sort of thing, so it still is a bit of a challenge to get super precise parts. But anyways, that's a future project, and I'm pretty happy with this product, especially for the price point, because these threads on this shaft are rolled. So the least expensive would be cut. The next highest quality would be rolled threads, which are actually harder than standard threads because you get some work hardening in there. So they rather displace material into the shape of the threads. So those are very good. And then the best threads, to my understanding, are ground threads, which these are not. But this isn't for super precise design. If you want to see how that spring is held, you can see it's a wrapped spring. Kind of a creative design, if you ask me. The other part is their linear bearings. And these are interesting because you can see how smooth that is. And I've got a bunch of different linear bearings I've gotten from equipment I've taken apart, and they're all using ball bearings that rotate in little tracks in a complete loop. This one, however, does not. This one is a Teflon coated, although it's a special version of Teflon they're calling Freelon shaft. On this one, on the outside of aluminum, and you can see the Freelon coating. So it's an aluminum housing with a bonding agent, and then the Freelon, which is a version of Teflon inside. Now, one of the advantages of this is that you get a really smooth fit that basically includes a wiping action with it. The bearing style has gaps where the bearings aren't, and you usually have to add wipers on both sides to keep materials out. This one only would let the really fine, because there's very little play on this shaft, and you can see how smoothly that goes back and forth. So another interesting product from PCB Linear, also very affordable. So if you're in the hobbyist realm like I am, and you really don't have a gazillion dollars to spend on high-end linear bearings, then this might be a good solution for you. So that's why I'm covering it at all. Last but not least, we have a package I just received yesterday. It's a very interesting packaging technique. Now, believe it or not, I bought this from one of the vendors on Amazon. So you think it would come in one of the Amazon boxes, you know, for a part this size or a tool this size. You would think it'd come in a box that's like 4 feet by 6 feet with a bunch of air cushion baggies in it. But no, this is how it got shipped to me, just like this. And it's not just a box under here. This is wood. Very interesting packaging. So the wood's kept together by tape. Never seen anything quite like it except from China. This tool I purchased because I already have some tools to work on this process. I'm trying not to give it away all at once. And because of the shape of my shop and how densely everything's packed, I really don't have easy access to use the primary tool that I have to do what this one does. So if that was obtuse enough, you can thank me. Let's just open this guy up and it'll become a lot more clear. Under the tape, which I just cut, there is some Luan cheese ball plywood, although sturdy enough because it didn't give way during transport. So we just need to pop this guy open. They stapled the pieces together. By the way, this is another really handy tool. Normally you see large pry bores. These tiny ones end up being useful an awful lot. And it's surprisingly sturdy. Still hasn't given it away. I gotta say their packaging is excellent. Oh, and it's 1/2-inch plywood on the side. And this type of plywood with really small layers of veneer used to be premium plywood. Now you can see there's a lot of voids in here, which means it's not. This used to be called Baltic birch plywood in the early days when it was first released. And the advantage to it was it was much stronger than normal plywood because the plies were smaller, which meant the wood to glue ratio was more in favor of the glue between the plies, and the glue is often stronger than the plies themselves. So it used to be premium, and you can still get it premium, but what makes this not so premium is the voids in here. This is inexpensive stuff, and we use this crap around the studio all the time, this cheap stuff. All right, so here it is, a toe jack. Also sometimes known as a railroad jack, and I'm not quite sure why, except that clearly they're used on railroads. This is a medium one. They have the one in this particular brand, I think they're 2.5 tons, 5 tons, and 10 tons. This is a 5-ton one, which is 10,000 pounds, US pounds, which is more than my heaviest piece of equipment, which would be the lathe, which is about 3,500 pounds. And this could lift the whole lathe, even though I only need to lift a corner. The construction seems pretty decent. They weren't, you know, shooting for super precision or anything, as I can tell here with their weld job, but it seems to work adequately. The advantage to a toe jack is you can get under an edge of a piece of equipment and lift up the side with almost no clearance to get underneath, which is incredibly handy because a normal jack that you'd have around the garage, like a car jack, even a low car jack, still needs, you know, like 5-6 inches of clearance. This one can get under specifically my milling machine, which is really handy. And then you can just put some blocks under it, set it down on the blocks, raise this up with another block, and do it again and again until you get it high, or get a bigger jack under there. Now, I have another tool that does a similar job to this, but again, I'm going to show you what the limitations are, why I picked this up. Now, this one was $169 on Amazon, right here. And the 10-ton one is $250, and I have some skates already. And I have the other tool that this one also does a similar job to, called a Johnson bar. We also use them in the industry to lift really heavy items. A very amazing example of what a fulcrum and a lever can do. This is a Johnson bar. And it also allows you to get under really low items, even lower than the jack I just bought, and still lift them up and move them. And it has some really nice wheels, plus a stop on the back that lets you spin, if you want, in place. The problem with the Johnson bar is you can see this big long arm that makes it so useful. Well, you can see already, in order to even lift this the tiniest amount, I need 2.5, almost 3 feet of clearance between the edge of this and a wall. Let's go over here to the milling machine. And you can see over here on this side, there's only like 6 inches to the wall with a little gap underneath. And on this side, also a similar amount, maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet. Can't use the Johnson bar anywhere on the side of this. I could use it on the front, but then when you want to lift the back up, well, you're not getting behind there and lifting this thing up at all. So that's where the jack comes into play, because I actually wanted to reposition my milling machine a little bit forward from where it sits now, maybe 1/2 foot, because it would give it a little more range. Right now it's designed, I chose it so that the table can just make it out the door, but a little bit farther forward, and I'll even be able to fit some more because I've run into problems with it running into things. So if I get right into that corner over there, I can get a few more inches, which is pretty handy. So that's what I'm going to do. And there was no way to really do it with the Johnson bar very easily. You probably could try and rig something, but this was fairly inexpensive, and it will allow me to move this like I wanted to. Well, that's it for the tools this time around. I hope you find it interesting, and I hope some of these things were useful to you. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. As I discover things, I just like to share them, and if any of them end up helping someone, you know, I think that's worth it. And you can always just fast forward past the video if you've seen it all before. So anyways, I always appreciate the viewership. And thank you for watching and always giving your suggestions, because I learn a ton from the people that leave comments. So I always appreciate it, even when they're critical of choices I've made, which I don't have a problem with. If you've got constructive criticism, absolutely bring it on, because it requires me to rethink my position on something, which I think is very valuable. And I learn even more from the criticism oftentimes than, hey, you did a great job, thanks for that, which I appreciate those a lot too, so not complaining at all. Anyways, thank you guys, and I hope you have a happy and safe holiday, and I will talk to you soon.